to the Space for Kentucky Roundtable. The Space for Kentucky Roundtable is a place to bring together space-focused businesses and enthusiasts so we can learn, discuss, and share insights about the space industry. This provides an opportunity for companies and individuals to come together to grow our space economy. Please take a minute to sign up for the Space for Kentucky notifications so that you are aware of all the amazing things that are coming up. In addition, here is a page of resources and links to help you get space into your classroom. I will add more as I get them. Tonight, we have 5 amazing educators that will present, and I hope that you will leave inspired to bring space into your classroom. We start off the evening with Kaci Heins, Director of Education with Limitless Space Institute. Then we will have Courtney Black, Education Project Manager with the International Space Station National Laboratory. And then Dr. Deepika Sangam, Education Specialist with NASA. Then we follow through with Dr. Mark Wagner from Aries Learning, who is also an author and president of Space Prize. And then our 5th speaker for the evening tonight is Robert Aillon. He is president of the Guayaquil Space Society and CEO of Leviathan Space Industries. Now, Kaci, she is down in Houston right now, and she had a little bit of a change in flight, so we're going to have her on first. She is at the airport getting ready to board, so I'm so happy that we have her for just a few minutes. Kaci Heins is Director of Education with Limitless Space Institute. Kaci has been in the education field for over 20 years, and her work has focused on STEM education and space exploration. She is the Director of Education for Limitless Space Institute, and they inspire and educate the next generation to travel beyond the solar system and support the research and development of enabling technologies in order to do so. She was the 2020 Alan Shepard Technology in Education Award winner, and recently she was awarded the Space Station Explorer Exceptional Educator Award. So congratulations, Kaci, and here we go into her segment. For those of you watching the video version, I have included a video about the Limitless Space Institute that I'm able to insert after the meeting. I think it is a powerful and inspirational video and explains why Kaci is so passionate about the Limitless Space Institute.
As incredible as it may seem, there will be a time, and it may be closer than you think, when we live on other worlds. The moon, Mars, and in the space between. And when that day comes, just as always, our children will look with curiosity across these new horizons, with a desire to go further and to explore what lies beyond. But beyond Mars, the distances between worlds grow immensely, even within our own solar system, and become truly vast in between stars. If we ever want to reach out across these distances, we need to learn how to go fast. Using our current knowledge of physics and engineering, we could build nuclear locomotives to take humans to all the worlds in our solar system. But a starship powered with a nuclear heart aimed for even our closest star, Proxima Centauri, would have to harbor hundreds of generations of people, all living their entire lives aboard, before reaching its destination, 4.25 light years away. It would take 2 years just to reach the orbit of Saturn, and another 2,000 years to reach Proxima Centauri. We need to be able to go faster. With our current knowledge of physics, but with engineering we have yet to develop, we can imagine a propulsion system with the sun for a heart, a fusion engine that could accelerate a starship up to 5% of the speed of light. This ship could cross the orbit of Saturn in 6 months and reach Proxima Centauri in just over a century. But if we want to traverse interstellar distances in less than a human lifetime, we have to go incredibly fast. The universe has shown us that this can be done by altering the scale of space itself. And we are working to develop new understandings of physics to learn how this might be controlled. If we could construct a starship with a propulsion system that decreases space in front of it and expands space behind it, this ship could cross enormous distances effectively faster than the speed of light. Such a ship would reach from Mars to Saturn in just a matter of minutes and be able to reach Proxima Centauri in less than 6 months. From there are no limits to where we could go. Perhaps one day, humanity will look up at an alien night sky and strain to find the pale yellow dot that is our sun, our home, and know for the first time, as we look back on ourselves, that we are not alone in the universe. This journey starts today.
Sorry.
So my
Forgot to-
role, that's okay. So with education, my goal is really focusing on educator professional development. We want the teachers in our classrooms excited about STEM education, space exploration education. So we help give them professional development, both virtually and in person here in Houston. And we help sponsor their travel to get here. We have applications open right now for our second cohort. I'm going to try and share my cell phone screen.
Yes.
All right. So here's our website, limitlessspace.org. And if we click on education, you can kind of get the gist of our website, which focuses on outreach. So we will conduct outreach if there's a need anywhere in the country. We can work out how we can get to your school or location. Right now, we have our Limitless Educator program that is open for applications. Again, it's a 2-year program. The first year is learning about all this advanced power and propulsion. The second year is being an ambassador, going out and sharing it with others, and of course, implementing in the classroom. We have a lab booster program to help teachers get funding for materials and resources for their classrooms. And of course, we've got lesson plans tied to all this awesome technology. So if you want to learn more, check out our website, limitlessspace.org. And I'm happy to answer questions. You've got my email address, and so you're able to kick anyone my way, but really excited to be here and share even for this little bit. Oh, I can't believe I made it work. So, but yeah, we're all excited about advanced power and propulsion, space exploration, inspiring our teachers and getting that next generation that of our workforce about problem solving. Problem solving. Sorry, I'm getting a little distraction. We're about ready to board, but thank you so much for this opportunity.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. And just to tell you a little bit about Kaci, she has been in the field for 20 years, and her work focuses on STEM. And the Limitless Space Institute looks at how to do warp speed. So she recently won the Alan Shepard Technology in Education Award, and this year she was awarded the Space Station Explorer Exceptional Educator Award. So I hope that's a mouthful. So I got that information last night. I'm like, oh, there she is on the International Space Station website. So, and that is is there any questions real quick for her before she boards? Let's take one or two and
Are all those lesson plans and everything available for free to the public?
I believe so. Yes, I believe so. Casey, is she still with us? Oh, well.
I posted the link to the Limitless Space website that she shared in the chat. And if you go over to the right-hand side of that link, it says Limitless Lesson Plans. And when you click on Limitless Lesson Plans, it gives you a place to download those lesson plans. So yes, they are available online for free.
All right. And I have many of the links that we'll be discussing tonight are on the webpage that is for this meeting, and I will also put that in the chat. So there's a bunch from the International Space Station, a bunch from NASA, and we will do that. So as we're talking about the ISS, why don't we go ahead and have Courtney present next. She is the Education Project Manager with the International Space Station, United States National Lab. And before joining the National Lab, she served as a formal educator for 14 years, educating elementary and high school youth. She presented previously on the Space for Kentucky Roundtable in a meeting that focused on jobs in space. And that recording is also available on spaceforkentucky.com. So without further ado, Courtney, why don't you take it away?
Thank you so much, Izzy. It's so great to be here. I love seeing familiar names. I love seeing familiar faces. Jonathan Stroud, you've been in my LinkedIn orbit for a very long time, and I'm not sure we've actually formally met. I think we might have presented together at one point, if that rings true. But I'm just really, really honored because this is such an influential group. And what we do every day, we can kind of forget, number one, how cool our jobs are. And number two, how important they are and what we can do. We've seen a mass exodus in education, and it's no real surprise. And anytime we can kind of support educators and support education is something that I think should always be the epicenter of our focus. And at the National Lab, it's something in our department. Whenever we get new shiny opportunities, we ask ourselves those questions. Does this impact educators in a positive way? Will it keep them in the classroom longer? And what can we do to make sure that anything we do select fulfills those requirements? So I want to go ahead and share quickly with you. I have some slides. I'm not sure many of us in here are formal educators. I think there's a lot of informal education. Maria Nichols here, and she's still in the classroom. But I want to go ahead and just briefly. So many of you may, a lot of people think, oh, National ISS, you're NASA. No, we operate under a cooperative agreement with NASA. About 11 years ago, Congress decided that there needed to be more access to the International Space Station because it is taxpayer funded and it is actually a floating laboratory. And we are so fortunate that they had the insight to think, wait a second, if we're going to have a national lab for the International Space Station, part of the allocation and resources need to be dedicated to education. And I get to work in the education department, which is kind of a dream come true because I never ever would have thought that I would work in the space industry. I've always loved space, grew up in Florida, watching rocket launches from our front yard. So this is a very cool opportunity for me. Like I mentioned, it is your floating laboratory in space. Now, Space Station Explorers, we are that education wing of the ISS National Lab. And part of what we do is work with a group of partners, a consortium of educational partners that leverage the science on the International Space Station to create educational programs and opportunities for educators and students. Most of our programs are completely free. There are paid for programs, but that's generally if you are paying to launch an experiment to the International Space Station or you're purchasing equipment. We have an ambassadors network that has over 2,000 members. We have over 20 Space Station Explorers partner programs and 40 educational partners. And the distinction there is our partner programs actually have a program that use the science on the International Space Station for educational programs such as Tomatosphere or ARIS, and you see Quest for Space there. Our educational partners are organizations like Blue Origins Club for the Future or Challenger Learning Centers. Anybody we can partner with in order to spread our reach and spread their reach. Our free programs are listed here. I'm not going to go through all of them, but like I said, most of them are completely free. Two of my favorites, oh, I have the ambassador program. If you're not an ambassador, and it's not just for educators, but please consider joining. This puts you on our mailing list and allows us to contact you with different opportunities in your area. If you're an educator in Tennessee and we have an outreach opportunity, for example, the end of September, there's an outreach opportunity in Utah. And we don't have the bandwidth to send someone from our organization. So we're actually sending Liam Kennedy. We're like, Liam, if we ship you some materials, will you please go to this event? He is not only one of our partners, but he's also an ambassador and represents us on a regular basis. And we've got, I think this is a picture of Ashley. I can't see that she was one of our first ambassadors, but Kaci Heins was actually one of two very first original ambassadors. And now the program actually has, I think, 2,500 individuals worldwide. ARIS is a free program where you can talk via ham radio to astronauts on the International Space Station. And Zero Robotics, it's another free program. It partners with MIT. It's a competition where students code robots aboard the International Space Station to perform specific tasks. And then there's a competition where different teams compete, and it's actually hosted by one of the astronauts aboard the International Space Station. Great program that teaches coding. It teaches teamwork, critical thinking, problem solving, a lot of those 21st century skills that we see lacking in students today. We do have fee-based programs, but like I said, if it's fee-based, you're purchasing equipment or you're sending something to the ISS. We have ISS above on here, and Liam Kennedy's here, and he's actually demoing. I think I can't see his screen, but he is demoing that it provides a live feed, telemetry, crew information, next visible pass of the ISS, and it's a Raspberry Pi device that can plug into any computer. It can plug into a TV, and it actually has an LED light that flashes when the ISS is passing over. So ideally, on a clear day, you turn on your screen once the light starts flashing, and you can see a live feed of your current location from the International Space Station. So super cool. Quest for Space has a different levels of robotics and coding. Their level 0, what they call it, is where it's a very cost effective. I believe it's $20 to code a robot to say a phrase such as "Happy birthday, Izzy," or "How are you doing today, Mom?" from the International Space Station. They record that video and the video gets downloaded back to Earth. So super cool. Pocket Lab is one of our newest partner programs. They have different sensors that will track everything from acceleration, speed, humidity, temperature. You can purchase these small pocket labs and they will detect different things. We're hoping at some point soon to send one to the International Space Station and have the astronauts do some demonstrations with that. But very, very cool apparatus. We have amazing partnerships. We've partnered with Lucasfilms, Marvel, with Guardians of the Galaxy. We had the recent challenge with Redwire and Microsoft where they 3D printed a Zune aboard the International Space Station. Everything to keep students engaged. We have these patches. If anybody wants one of these patches, shoot me an email and I can probably get you a few. Slime in Space is a free, what they called a field trip, a virtual field trip, but it has activities in it. Explored how does slime behave in space? What are some of the things that we can expect from a non-Newtonian fluid when you remove gravity? Again, we have all these resources and more online. There's a short video. It's a cool video. I'm not going to play it now, but please feel free to scan this QR code to learn more about our project, our programs. And we would love if you have any questions for me. I would be more than happy to answer any of them. last thing before I go, Expedition Space Lab is a program that has grade level curriculum, and it's sorted by Earth and space science, technology, life science, physical science. All these lessons are free online. They are also divided into elementary, middle, and high school. And so there's scaffolding. They have a career connections scholarly article, a video that illustrates the scientific principle, and a lesson that you can do with your class. Again, this is completely free. We also have the opportunity, which will be opening here next month, in order to win $10,000 for your school or organization. More information can be found on our website, which is ISS National Lab /STEM /. And any questions you have for me can be sent to me at cblack@issnationallab.org.
We will go from Courtney to NASA. So Dr. Deepika Sangam is an education specialist with NASA, and she works with educators nationwide in integrating real-world NASA STEM content into their classrooms. Welcome, Dr. Deepika Sangam.
So happy to be here. Thank you for the opportunity. Are you all able to see my screen?
We are.
Okay, wonderful. So looks like a lot of people here today are very much into space education and have great passion for that. So I'm happy to share the platform with them. But my message too is more towards a broader public, like for people who never thought of how to bring NASA into their classrooms. So I'm really excited to share the wealth of NASA resources available for educators. These resources are designed to inspire and empower educators in providing exceptional learning experience for students. So let's dive in. So on a scale of 1 to 5, if you don't mind, you can type in the chat, what is your familiarity with what NASA STEM has to offer in terms of engagement opportunities with both students and teachers? So again, thanks for the introduction. My name is Deepika Sangam. I have a background in engineering, education, and engineering education research, and I currently specialize broadly in STEM education. I serve as the Educator Professional Development Specialist for NASA STEM, where I assist teachers in preparing the next generation of explorers. So bringing all that amazing science, technology, engineering, and math content in the classrooms is my job, and I love doing what I do. And we try to bring in research-based perspectives every time we do that so that we are effective in what we do. Here's one of our newer videos. I'm going to play it. It shows the breadth of goals for NASA as a science agency. And again, with all work that NASA does, we also look at what is the benefit to humanity. I think videos like this are great engagement tools in classrooms to inspire students. So let's check this out.
Let us continue to dream the impossible dream that now becomes real.
Space is for everyone.
We humans really are connected to the universe.
The Earth's climate is changing. We have documented the changes.
And we have touchdown!
And liftoff. The Starliner is headed back to space on the shoulders of Atlas.
The Artemis generation stands ready to return humanity to the moon, and then to take us further than ever before to Mars.
Okay. NASA videos are very well made and very inspirational, and I always tell my educators that they're a great tool to use in classroom. That video specifically showed us the breadth of NASA's work, and it is everything they seem to set goals and achieve them as truly an engineering and scientific marvel. So there is a great story, and the NASA's Office of STEM Engagement's job is to bring that story into classrooms and inspire students so that it helps them build their STEM identity. Work is done across all of NASA's centers and facilities spread across the country. Each center has its own expertise. And given your geographical location and the subjects that you teach, the unique expertise of each of these centers could offer you some opportunities that are really accessible. So definitely check them out, find out whichever center you're closer to. There are educator opportunities, student opportunities that become available. And NASA's work is broken down into 5 mission directorates. We have the Aeronautics, Exploration System Science, Space Operations, and Space Technology. ARMD, which is the Aeronautics Research Mission Directorate, it works for the benefits of today's air transportation system, aviation industry, and passengers and businesses rely on that. That's why they often, use this tagline, NASA is with you when you fly. Aeronautics research was that stepping stone that has led us to space exploration, and NASA is continuing its leadership in aviation research as well. And Exploration Systems Development Mission Directorate manages programs critical to NASA's Artemis missions and planning for NASA's Moon to Mars exploration in an integrated manner. Science Mission Directorate is responsible for directing and overseeing NASA's space research program in Earth and space science. And you have the space operations that's related to ISS and commercial launch services. And then finally, the Technology Mission Directorate, it drives the exploration to Moon, Mars, and beyond. This directorate is focused on advancing technologies and testing new capabilities at the Moon that will be critical for the crewed missions to Mars. So everything that NASA is doing with the Artemis missions is with Mars insight, because that's our natural next stepping stone. And all the technologies that the STMD is a part of are those engineering test beds that will then be used for Mars. So NASA knows that in order to continue its work, its aspirations, it needs to invest in STEM education so the students of today can become next generation of NASA. NASA has an office dedicated to STEM education efforts called the Office of STEM Engagement. And one of the initiatives within the Office of STEM Engagement is Next Generation STEM that I am directly associated with. And I do a lot of work with those resources, and we'll look at what those resources are. But ultimately, NASA's Office of STEM Engagement's vision is to immerse students in NASA's work, enhance STEM literacy, and inspire. So if you look at the bottom of the slide here, we say inspire, engage, educate, and employ. So we have that long view of a diverse workforce development as well in all our efforts. This is Next Gen STEM. It's another video that beautifully captures everything, all the efforts under Next Gen STEM and how we are getting up to make an impact in K-12 STEM education.
Next Gen STEM, or NGS, is a project from NASA's Office of STEM Engagement, designed to bring NASA's missions, people, and content to classrooms and living rooms across the country. Next Gen STEM offers K-12 students and educators innovative products, experiences, challenges, competitions, and opportunities only NASA can provide. These products are designed for students in schools, after-school programs, informal institutions like museums and science centers, and at home. What can educators expect from NGS? Next Gen STEM offers live, virtual connections where students can hear from STEM role models at NASA with diverse geographic and career backgrounds. Students can ask questions and hear answers in real time. Through downlink opportunities, students can even connect with astronauts living and working on the International Space Station. We have annual challenges and competitions where students can research, launch rockets, and plan missions. just like NASA's scientists, astronauts, and engineers. NextGen STEM offers educators free professional development training and on-demand digital badging. In addition, we leverage an online community of practice called NASA Connects. It's an online platform where new and experienced professionals in STEM education can join discussions, share best practices, learn about the latest events and opportunities at NASA, and download free STEM products. Through our NASA Team 2 awards, informal education institutions across the country have developed a substantial body of resources to foster STEM learning in their communities. Inside our curricula support materials and toolkits, educators can find slides, posters, videos, and resources. Our videos include helpful tutorials, step-by-step demonstrations, and attention-grabbing short films. To learn more about NextGen STEM, visit NASA's Office of STEM Engagement's website and join the NASA Connects community of practice today.
NextGen STEM is organized in 4 mission focus areas. The first one is Moon, which focuses on Artemis missions from launch to splashdown. Anyone can learn about the ground transportation, exploration, communication systems, and learn about how NASA plans to make use of these missions to return humans to the moon. And the solar system and beyond, which allows students to learn more about NASA and how NASA is uncovering newer worlds, stars, and cosmic mysteries near and far with our powerful fleet of space and ground missions. Again, Aeronaut X, as we call it, is focused on NASA's aviation research and what is the new generation of flight. They can take a deep dive into that. And the Earth mission focus area helps students learn about Earth, climate science, and connect students with the International Space Station, its crew, and learn more ways about how to contribute to NASA's missions. So oftentimes, whenever you see our offerings, they're always identified by which mission focus areas they are associated with. So just to provide a quick visual, here we have resources for both educators and students. For educators, you can find educator guides, which are packaged hands-on activities with excellent background information that helps you tell that NASA story and bring it in your classrooms. We offer professional development, the video reference, the Team 2 awards, and then finally community of practice. And for students, we have internships and fellowships, learning resources for them to go read articles and dive deeper into a topic, and open-ended challenges, and also resources for out-of-school learning. Now let's look at some of the educator resources a little bit in depth. This is our new website, which is going to be launched really soon. This is the beta. It's not live yet, but I'm really impressed with how well we've organized all this and made it really easy to use. So this is a screenshot of what that new website is going to look like. You have resources for K through 12 educators, organized by grade level. Then we have resource collections, which are all the learning resources on a particular topic. Here you see Earth science, Earth's moon, aeronautics of flight. All of these are different collections and many more. There's a search feature where you can, curate your own resources by topic or grade level or any of these STEM disciplines. My group, I work with the Educator Professional Development team, and our offerings are you can think of them along these 3 lines. We have online webinars, we do in-person Educator Professional Development workshops, and we also do conference presentations. We are there at some of the big conferences across the nation, so come find us there. And we also do external requests, like Space for Kentucky is just an example that came our way, and we're happy to share our work. So with EPD, our focus is, again, linking K through 12 content to NASA missions. We want to do it in a culturally relevant manner, make it really accessible for all students, and all the while utilizing current pedagogy and learning strategies. And then we want to also help not only build the STEM content knowledge of educators, but also their own identity. And we want to focus on continuous. We believe in that sustained educator professional development, and a big part of that approach is our community of practice platform, NASA Connects, that you heard about in the video. And it's open to all educators, pre-service and service, formal, informal. We do webinars, weekly webinars. We have a webinar called NASA 101, which is going to be much like what you're hearing me share today. It's going to be for those educators who've never heard of how NASA can be in their classrooms. I recently was in Miami doing a professional development event with the Miami-Dade School District. And, I was very lucky to be in the room because none of those educators had ever even thought of how to bring NASA story or resources into the classroom. So NASA 101 is a webinar for school districts who've never even thought of bringing NASA into their classrooms. And we do weekly webinars focused on each of those mission focus areas. So we have one per week. So if you are interested in learning about how to bring the NASA Artemis story in your classroom, you'll find one webinar a month that talks about the different aspects of that story and related hands-on activity and pedagogy. We do once a quarter, we do Spanish language webinars, and then we do special webinars as well, specially requested ones. In person, we do workshops where the focus is hands-on activity and making those real-world connections to NASA STEM, the science and technology and engineering challenges that our scientists and engineers at NASA are working on, and how to bring them into the classroom is the focus of those workshops. We do conferences. We are going to do something called STEM 101 workshops. We piloted one this summer at Johnson Space Center. It was a 3-day workshop with an immersive experience at the NASA Center where they engage in multiple hands-on activities, build that community, and reflect on how they can, broaden participation in STEM, not just keep students busy with the hands-on activities, but make those real-life connections in a culturally responsive manner and build their identity. And we do a lecture and speaking engagements, but all these have to go through our request process that you'll become familiar with. And I highly encourage all of you to join our community of practice, NASA Connects. As the video indicated, there are multiple opportunities that will become available on this platform. And this is your one-stop shop for all things NASA STEM education. So please get on that. And I've shared how to create an account on that platform with Izzy, and I think those resources are going to be available for everyone as well. So get on Connect with us, ask your questions, and get access to those exclusive opportunities. Next few slides, go through the account creation process. Again, it is a few steps, but we have a really good resources and support available to you to get on Connect. So definitely check out those links that will be shared on the website. And we have MUREP. MUREP is the Minority University Research and Education Program. The goal here, again, is to broaden participation by working with students and educators from institutions where the majority is underrepresented population in STEM. We give them awards and also directly engage them in our programs. Sparks is another program. It is a low barrier, one of our low barrier programs, and it stands for Sparking Participation in Real World STEM Experiences. It's open enrollment in the sense that you can join anytime. If you haven't already done it, you haven't missed much, you can get on anytime. We have webinars talking about how to implement Spark. So we have that support available for you year round when you want to get on Sparks and implement that program in your classrooms. It's for grades K through 12, and we have different modules and guides to go along with that. So a really neatly packaged set of activities, again, telling a story. I did a professional development on the 6 through 8 Astrobio bot. So it's based on a graphic novel, and it's a story about the challenges encountered by that robot when it's landing on Mars, and what are some of those engineering solutions related to that challenge. So really neatly packaged. There's a video here, but I'm not going to play in the interest of time. Again, students can directly engage with NASA STEM as well. We have resources curated for them. There are open-ended challenges that students can take part. This allows students to join teams with a faculty mentor and solve those open-ended problems, and there are going to be prizes and cool opportunities for the winning teams. Again, we talked about in-flight downlinks. These are really popular. There's an application process for this. You apply, and then you get to talk to astronauts about the ISS and ask them questions and look at some cool STEM demonstrations as well. Aside from NASA Connects, NASA Express is something else you want to sign on to. It's our newsletter that goes out every week with the latest student and educator opportunities. And finally, if you're interested in getting more involved and staying up to date with all our latest NASA offerings, please connect with us on social media. And that's all I have. This is my team's email. If you have any question, please reach out to us. And again, thank you all for being here today as we delve into what all resources that NASA has to offer. I think, you will be amazed at what you can do with that for your students and how you can inspire them and prepare them for STEM. So thanks again.
Thank you very much. And I would also like to make a note that there is an open house at Langley coming up. So if you're nearby, it looks very interesting. So I will make sure that there's a link in there to that as well.
Thank you.
NASA Langley.
I know I can only scratch the surface here. There are way too many opportunities that are there. And that is why I want to really emphasize that NASA Connects is a place to learn about everything. We have a virtual career fair and many things going on. There's only so much I could cover here, but then the big takeaway is, to be involved with NASA STEM, you want to get on Connects and stay engaged with us there. Thank you.
And there was one comment in here about Space for Kentucky being for Kentucky. One of the things that's interesting about this is that it's global. Kentucky is just a very small part, but the challenges that Kentucky faces in bringing STEM and bringing space into the classroom, it's everywhere. That's a problem everywhere, regardless of. Robert is from Ecuador, and he faces similar challenges that Eastern Kentucky faces. So this is a global thing. So thank you so much, Dr. Deepika. And is there any questions for her? I mean, there is a ton of stuff from NASA. NASA is the pinnacle of what space education is. So
Izzy, just one quick question. Yes. You can have those presentations available. They're wonderful. They could be shared.
The NASA presentations, yes. And I will put that back in the chat room. I have quite a few of those links there, and I will be adding more. That's going to be a living place to get some resources. Okay, we will move on, and I have Aries Learning will be the next one that we do, and Dr. Mark Wagner is the founder of Aries Learning, and Aries Learning it engages students in growing the space economy with hands-on entrepreneurial education from incubation to acquisition. He is also the author of the Space Education, Preparing Students for Humanity's Multi-Planet Future. And if that wasn't enough, he is also the president of Space Prize, which is a competition, an essay competition and video competition where that engages young women in high school to reach for STEM careers. And I had the opportunity to be a judge for the first one in New York City. So please, Dr. Wagner, take it away.
Sure thing. And for Robert and anybody else, I'm going to just drop the link to the deck in straight away before I share my screen. So you guys can follow up on this. Almost every slide I've got some links in there, so there should be a number of resources you could dive into. But if I've done this right, you guys should see a big full screen slide. Fantastic. So yeah, thank you for the introduction, Izzy. I won't really say anything else about myself other than to say I'm a former high school English teacher, and I was a tech coordinator at the site, district, and county levels before almost 20-year career in doing professional development for teachers in education technology. So over the last few years, since just before COVID, and I got the opportunity to hit the reset button like everybody else, focused really all of my work now on space education. It feels good to kind of come full circle. In my undergrad, Izzy House, I was a aeronautical engineering student, so it's fun to come back all the way around to that. And I know I'll be preaching to the choir for the most part, but I think I have kind of a unique approach, so I want to share it at least briefly. And I usually, when I'm talking to educators, start with the idea of asking them, are students ready for this reality? Never mind the future, but this reality right now. We've got reusable launch vehicles. We've got satellites in orbit that are monitoring the Earth in high definition video real time all the time. We've got a constellation of satellites providing broadband internet access regardless of borders or despots for that matter. And technologies like these, similar to GPS before them or the internet and cell phones before them, we will see these transform all kinds of careers. So this is just not about getting kids into the space industry or the aerospace industry or the growing space economy. This is about how space is going to affect everything in the economy. I like to say if you're going to go work for a sneaker company, you better understand what materials from space could make better sneakers. You better understand what you might do with a GPS chip in your sneaker, right? And certainly space companies need people who understand accounting and marketing and all of that as well. So we've got to prepare students to be good contributors to this economy. So another thing I like to roll out right now, particularly post-COVID, is we're living at a time when 40% of New York City public school students were chronically absent last year. And 70% of LAUSD teachers reported burnout and a desire to leave the profession. And those are not unusual numbers across the country. But Unistellar, the telescope company, actually released a independent study that Wakefield Research put it on last year that looked at 500 U.S. families across demographics and income brackets. And they found that 93% of U.S. kids are interested in space. So this isn't a boy thing or a girl thing or an elementary thing and a secondary thing. It's not a rich or a poor thing. Kids are excited about space, and we can tap into that to increase student engagement and maybe reduce teacher burnout too, when we're looking at something hopeful about their future instead of remediating, looking backward at what they missed during COVID, right? We are talking about workforce development. That's obviously particularly relevant to this group, but you guys have heard also the statistics about preparing kids for a potentially $1 trillion space economy by the time they graduate. And that's not counting whole new $1 trillion economies like asteroid mining or space solar power that will also, similar to the other technologies I mentioned, transform many industries and change the situation here on the ground. And we've got to prepare kids for that. And then it sounds a little more out there, but we are also preparing kids for a multi-planet future. Theoretically, today's second graders are going to graduate into a world where we've got a permanent presence on the moon, even if NASA struck that word from the plan, right? And we've landed people on Mars if Elon has his way. And we have probably several commercial space stations having moved into the space that the ISS fills right now. So what are we doing to prepare kids for a reality where that has all taken place by the time they graduate into the workforce? So with that in mind, one of our answers is science, technology, engineering, and math. And this group has certainly covered a lot of that. I think it's also one step more than that. And it's not just the arts. I'm a big advocate for the humanities in education. But if we can't predict the future, and I think we've seen over and over again that we can't, and the schools are kind of bad at that. And maybe I'm also bad at that in laying out the last few slides. We can prepare kids for an unpredictable, fast-moving future and give them the skill sets and mindsets they need to be successful in that situation. So we like to focus on the explorer's mindset. And comfort with the unknown, and we focus on moonshot thinking big outside the box, and we focus on design thinking to iterate and prototype and test and perhaps pivot depending on the feedback that you're getting. So we look at things like this. We look at synthesis across disciplines. We look at ethical dimensions of scenarios that kids are facing, and we look at what we call Hansei, borrowing from the Japanese, looking at relentless self-reflection. So preparing kids with the skill sets and mindsets they need to be successful in their future. And we do that cross-disciplinary ways. I could dive into a lot more detail on these, or you guys could jump over to the AriesLearning.com website and watch some of the videos. We got the opportunity to do a moonshot lab in Honolulu, and it's amazing to see what these kids did. It was funding meant for primarily Indigenous kids in Hawaii, and to see what they did when you asked them, what problem do you want to solve, and gave them all the resources of the moonshot lab at their disposal. So in the interest of time, I'm actually I realize I already talked about explorer's mindset, at least touched on it, and moonshot thinking and design methodology. So there's links in all these slides if you guys want to go to other resources like National Geographic and Google's X Lab, where you can find more material on this. But I want to dive into the book. This is not free. A lot of the resources I will be sharing are free. A lot of them are well worth the price, but you guys can pop over to Amazon and pick this up. It's kind of an academic volume. I had the opportunity to go back after my PhD in education technology, got to go back and get graduate certificates in space education and space philosophy. So who knew those existed, but I'm glad they do. And all of the papers I wrote, I kind of had my ducks in a row and put them together into this book. So it looks at a lot of the issues I was just talking about in terms of how we can prepare kids today. It also looks a little further down the road at how we might educate students when we get there, which it turns out, if you're teaching kids today, having them think about what the first school on the moon might look like is a great way to engage a lot of the issues and a lot of the science around that. You start talking life support at a school on the moon, and you're teaching the water cycle, the carbon cycle, the oxygen cycle, and so forth, right? So the last third of the book then looks at space philosophy, issues of governance and ethics and sustainability and that sort of thing. I had the opportunity working with the Space Prize Foundation to pull together a curriculum that essentially accompanies it and covers those same ideas. Now, this is a free open education resource. You can get it easily by going to spaceeducation.org. One of our founders snatched up that URL, and the link also is in the deck. But it's not just an introduction to space science and the history of space exploration. It's also why space is important to people here on Earth, what's going on in the new space economy. It gets into issues of sustainability and governance and ethics, and sort of farther term looks at issues like avoiding extinction and aspiring to humanity's greater purpose in the cosmos. So kind of an ambitious flex book, an online textbook, but lots of great material there. It was designed for the high school students we were working with at the time, but you certainly could use it with kids of any age that have the reading level and interest in it. I have an online course that kind of walks teachers through the book and the curriculum. If you're interested in that, you can find it right now at arieslearning.com/course. And it's full of lots of activities you could turn around and use with your kids. And we actually have a back to school special going right now. So real special pricing on there if you want to head on over to arieslearning.com/course. Another one, this is by far the most expensive thing I'll share on here, but it's super cool. We connected with Dr. Kirby Runyon, who's a geologist, and he does training for commercial astronauts to teach them what they're going to be looking at on their suborbital parabolic flights when they look down at the Earth. And so we go through New Mexico and we study landforms that you might find on the moon or Mars or Titan or elsewhere in the solar system. It includes a STEM tour of Spaceport America and a tour of the Virgin Galactic facilities there. So that's October 26th if you want to join Kirby and I out in the New Mexico desert and see white sands and lava flows and impact craters and things like that. The Aldrin Family Foundation is another foundation I'm working with right now, and they have these spectacular giant size maps. We're talking 33 feet on a side for kids to study and interact with. They come with programmable robotic rovers that can interact with the map. They come with reference books that the kids can look at and a pro globe so they can associate it with a 3D body in space too. So I didn't want to fail to mention them. If you guys head over to aldrinfoundation.org, you can learn more about that program and others that they offer. Now, in terms of additional free opportunities, I co-host with some of my colleagues and friends the Space Education Summit. Our fourth one is coming up on November 10th. It's a conference style event, but it's online on Zoom like this. We open the day with a astronaut panel. We have 3 astronauts confirmed. We're going to ask them how students might best prepare for everything we're talking about right now. Followed by breakout sessions in multiple strands. We have an education strand, psychology strand, young professional strand, with some really great speakers and a special guest for a fireside chat at the end of the day. So if you guys head over to spaceeducation.events or the longer, more direct link in the deck, you can sign up for that now, and that's free. Highly recommend it. Another free source of video content for you and your students. By the way, the summit, we have a lot of the past sessions on the YouTube channel for the summit, which is also linked in the deck. On a separate YouTube channel, we have the Space Prize Speaker Series. I got to do, I guess you could call it season 1. We spoke with 18 people, a lot of them women, but not all of them. We were working to inspire young women. But 18 people from across the space industry. We talked to not only astronauts, engineers, and scientists, but entrepreneurs, designers, lawyers, historians. We're talking space lawyers, space historians, space interior designers, space fashion designers. So really kind of a great lineup, and all freely available videos that you guys can use with your students. And it really was focused on their career development and their path. On the back of the last Space Education Summit, we launched a Facebook group. You can get there by going to spaceeducator.net. We call it the Space Educator Network. And that's growing. There's a handful of prolific members who share lots of resources. I try to put resources in there that I think might be relevant to educators and enthusiasts in less formal roles. So you guys are all invited to join. It's just spaceeducator.net. And then finally, it's a long, ugly URL, but you'll find it in the deck that I shared. But I did have the opportunity when I was working with Space Prize to have a few interns, and they had finished their other work, and we had some time left over. And so they compiled a spreadsheet of, at this point, it's about 100 space education resources, sort of lightly annotated, so you know the value to students or teachers or parents. And you can find all kinds of resources there, a lot of the ones we talked about today, and many, many others. So wanted to pass that on to you guys as well. Now, I've reached the end of this. I'm going to stop sharing my screen. Looks like there's a couple things in the chat in case there's other questions. And then I imagine Izzy's going to ask if anybody has questions. So happy to entertain those.
Absolutely. Yes. And I would like to point out that those speaker series and everything are really good. And they have very interesting people. And it's not just for STEM. Like he said, it was interior designers, lawyers. And this whole economy is going to be full of different types of professions, and not just, astronauts. So we do need astronauts and engineers, but there's so many more. And that's one of the reasons why we want to get kids excited about space and connect them. There's so many different connections that we have in our daily life that people just don't relate as space. Like, we carry space in our pocket. Everything that's on our cell phone is related to space, and people need to, the children that are in schools, they need to know how to access that information to clean our planet, because we live in a space station that's floating in space. So we need to grab that technology and learn how to apply it in different situations. So, any questions? And that particular document is wonderful. It is also listed in that link that I had, and a lot of the links I got and put on there were from there. So Space Prize is global. Didn't you do like Paris? The first one was in New York, but then you went to other parts of
Paris and Portugal. There's not a challenge active right now, but yeah, definitely the resources are great for everybody.
And can you tell us just a little bits about how the girls have developed? I've seen quite a bit.
Well, I'll tell you my favorite story in the context of what we were just talking about. There was a girl, Maya, in New York, and her dad encouraged her to, enter the essay competition, right? And there were a lot of girls that entered that were into math and science and space, but she was more of a self-professed English and social studies nerd, right? And she played lacrosse. She didn't think it was really for her. But of course, she wrote a great essay, and we ended up, as she got among the finalists, she ended up getting connected with a mentor who had been in PR for NASA and had worked at a bunch of space startups over the years, and Polycorn. And in the end, Maya ended up, she was 100% bought in. And at the end, she said, "I never thought there'd be a place for me in the space industry. I didn't know they needed writers in space." And it's like, oh, yes, we need actually quite a bit of that. You got to be able to communicate these ideas to other people. So yeah, that was a highlight for me.
Awesome. Yes, there's room for space for everyone. So.
No, I was going to say that, working at NASA, you only look at NASA, but I'm very glad to see the efforts that are all around and really impressed. So I assume most of you attend the SEEK conference. Is that a well-known thing? Okay. Yeah. At Space Center Houston, that happens every year for space educators. Pretty cool.
Okay, and tell us a little bit more about that. Actually, I don't know anything about that, and that's kind of what this is that there's a lot of people that are going to watch the video that don't have experience in space and want to know how to inspire kids. So and adults. Kids aren't the only ones that need inspiration, and so why don't you tell us about the conference real quick?
Yeah, SEEK is an annual conference. I see somebody has a link there. It's a space educator conference that happens annually at Space Center Houston. And I've been there once, and it is really a gathering of real passionate space educators. They eat, breathe space all day long. I feel like this group, would fit right in there. So again, it's a opportunity for everybody to come together, learn, of course, more about what NASA is, what new things NASA has coming. So we are constantly developing new educator modules. We launch those at SEEK. We have a new graphic novel coming, and that's going to be debuted at the space conference. So there are things that NASA, of course, showcases, but then it's also an opportunity for educators to come and share best practices as to how they're doing their own thing, and how are they effectively using the space story, broader space story, not just NASA story, into their classrooms, and how they're inspiring their students. So it's for educators, and it happens in February every year.
There's another space conference that actually happens at Kennedy Space Center in the summertime. I posted the link to both of those in there, and Mark Wagner and I were racing to post the link to sync, but they're both great conferences. The one at Space Center Houston is phenomenal. They have great tours. The one at Kennedy Space Center is a little smaller. It's a little more intimate, but they have different tours. They got to tour the vehicle assembly building last year and some of the launch pads. So they're both fantastic. In an ideal world, every NASA center would have their own educators conference so that people weren't geographically eliminated from attending because of distance and flights and travel. We try very hard to sponsor educators every year. So if you would like to go to one of these conferences, we set funds aside in order to sponsor travel. You do have to be a U.S. citizen. I know I see Maria Nickel on here, who's our fellow Canadian. And every time I'm like, oh, let's send Maria. And then I'm like, oh, but for our funds, but we always try to find resources for educators that want to attend these conferences.
Awesome. All right. So talking global, let's segue to Robert. Robert is the president of Guayaquil Space Society and the CEO of Leviathan Space Industries. He is a partner to a lot of space organizations. His company partners with a lot of space organizations, and he is one of those dynamic people that make things happen. And he has been on my podcast, but he has actually inspired me personally to go into the spaceport industry. He has that way of spreading the love for space. With just a couple of simple questions, he can get somebody excited about the new trajectory. So he has was instrumental in Ecuador signing the Artemis Accords here recently. He doesn't promote it, but you can hear it in a lot of the conversations that he had a part to play in that. So, Robert, would you please take it away?
Izzy, thank you so much for those kind words. I'm just so happy to have to do anything with Kentucky because I'm half blue. I went to school in University of Kentucky, so for me, it's this how the state wins and is successful is very important for me too. And if we can bring it to collaborate with Ecuador and the rest of South America, I think it's very, very important. Like what Izzy was saying, what was right. We're definitely very interested to see, what the impact of education is. We see it from an economic development point of view about what we need, especially for third world nations, to be successful and become first world nations. How can we find a road to prosperity out of poverty, and how we can solve our biggest problems? And technology with space is what definitely brings all those opportunities for everybody. The challenge is, how do we start? What do we do next? How do we talk to people about it? And how do we request support? And I think that part of those efforts that we did was trying to promote Ecuador becoming a more active actor within the space community. And Artemis was a very important step towards that. Let me just show you briefly these quick slides, because I just feel so much pride now that I can say that we are with you in Artemis. So that's Ecuador's flag right there. We were country number 26 in signing this in the month of June, and that's Ambassador Yvonne Baki at the Ecuadorian Embassy in Washington, D.C. During the signing. And we were there with the support of the Ministry of Foreign Relations, Gustavo Manrique. So it was a great decision by them to be able to embrace the message that we were transmitting about the importance of being part of this important initiative and what this effect can have in our community, especially our children. So it's phenomenal. We're very happy now that we can actively say that we're part of what you guys are doing. These are just some pictures that I just wanted to show. We had the Milo Space Science Institute from Arizona State visit us. They decided to have Ecuador become the pilot program for the workforce development initiative in Latin America, which is great. That way universities can be involved. And 2 weeks ago, the Space Foundation came to visit us, which is remarkable because now we can start thinking about programs for elementary and secondary schools. And that way we can start thinking about what is the right pipeline. As you guys mentioned about the workforce development, how do we get kids early on engaged? Because the challenges are that they're going to drop out of school, in this case, because there's a lot of economic pressure for them to work or help those families. They want to get them engaged so they continue to elementary school and high school, and then they can start considering that the university is a possible career path for them, and that STEAM and sciences can definitely lead them towards those opportunities that will lead eventually to jobs for them. So we definitely want to create the right path so they can be successful. And all the wonderful programs that you guys are doing are so inspiring, and those tools are just so necessary that we can use all of them. If I was there right now, I'll take all of them and I'll take them back to Ecuador. So I'll have to invite all of you guys to please come to Ecuador and join us there, because I think this is definitely worth a more profound conversation, and for you guys to meet our school teachers and for you guys to meet our students, and you can be very, very excited. So in this next image, I just wanted to share that we are taking steps, to get everybody excited, and they love the subject. We're giving right now radish seeds that went to space, and we're also working with shrimp larvae, so the kids are excited to do things that they know, because the local economy of Ecuador is heavily dependent on exports like agriculture and shrimp. So that's what the kids know. So it's very exciting for them to be able to do something that they can relate to with their families when they do it for work. With the Space Foundation and the Milo Space Science Institute that visited us from ASU, now we're thinking about how do we create a space ecosystem, and what do we need in this case to empower the necessary development of the schools to help propel us, for our industries and for our institutions to be successful. And that's a very important point of discussion with regards to that. And here are just some of the students, as you can see, just very excited, raising their hands. They want to ask questions. They want to share their stories. And I had a student that actually gave an explanation about how the moon was created. And this was like a 6-year-old kid. And in perfect English, he went ahead and explained how the moon got done, to the surprise of even his own teachers. And the kid was just so curious that he did that research on himself, and he just wanted to share it. So that's an amazing impact, that space can do in this kid's motivation about getting to do more and share more. So that's the things that I just wanted to share a little bit about, so you guys can get excited as we are, because we would love definitely to be able to collaborate and create these opportunities. I understand that some of the programs are just US based, and the idea now that we think about Artemis is, great, how do we create the right framework for collaboration, not only at the space agency level between NASA and other space agencies, but between universities, between elementary schools, for those teachers to collaborate with others around the world, and for the students also to be able to meet each other and plan about what they can do in space. So I think that's something really cool, and hopefully we can do more with Kentucky. And I would love to invite you guys next year all to Ecuador 2024. And let's have, how about an event just focus on education, and you guys are all here. So I just definitely want to express my gratitude, Izzy, for that, and hope you guys to see you, all of you, soon here. Thank
Well,
you.
and thank you, Robert. And I'd like to really stress that, the space is global. That's one of the really cool things about it. And if an elementary class from Eastern Kentucky can work with an Ecuadorian class of kids, what do you think is going to be the result of that collaboration? I mean, I get goosebumps just thinking about the power in how those children will grow up thinking that our world is small, and that, oh, I have a friend that is halfway around the world that I can call in a second, and they can help us with the solution of this. So I think this is powerful, and I think it can go so far. So is there any questions for any of the panel members except for Kaci? And I would like to point out that Kaci was not somebody that was a STEM teacher. She wasn't a space teacher. That she went to one of these programs with the ISS and got sponsored and got hooked on space. So, capturing the children's imagination is one thing, but it's the adults too. Everybody needs to feel like they're a part of something bigger than themselves, and space can do that, and it can ignite people to learn and hopefully make the world a better place.
And I want to add that there is a lot of cross-curricular opportunities with space too. It's not just STEM. Of course, technology is what drives exploration, but then there's space philosophy, like Mark mentioned, and then there is this whole, history of space exploration. So there are opportunities to bring many cross-curricular connections as well. So it's not just closed off for STEM.
Yes, we need everybody. No matter if you are somebody that likes to cook, we need space food. NASA just launched, I believe they selected 6 different companies to develop cuisine for space, because we have to eat when we're reaching out there, and it has to be good, because food is a very integral part of who we are, regardless of what part of the world you are. Food is culture, and so it's important. So are there any questions for any of the panelists for us tonight?
I think what you mentioned, the last comment is really great about the culture aspect, because if we think about sustainability, usually we think about resources or time as we work, but we are also part of that sustainability element, humankind. And that means, what do we need to do to either adapt for space or to preserve our culture, and how our culture just becomes richer by this exchange and what new things that we can create together. So culture, I think it's an important way of our definition of who we are and who we're going to be as we definitely move to space.
And it's critical. It's what we should celebrate. And so any questions for anybody? All right. Well, there will be some links listed in the show notes, and I encourage you to listen to some of the stories that we have. Several of the panelists have spoken with me on my podcast, and I will have those links in there too. So they have great stories, and I would love to thank each and every one of you for being here tonight. And also too, there's a lot of other resources out there. Kaci and Courtney are both Civil Air Patrol people as well. And a lot of the STEM kits, there was one particular STEM kit that I saw in the NASA video that you can get through Civil Air Patrol. It's there's an application fee for teachers, and it's like $20, and you get all these STEM kits from Civil Air Patrol that are just given to you for your classroom. So it is definitely a awesome thing, and kids can learn about aerospace, and they can learn about search and rescue. They can learn how to be leaders. And so it is a wonderful program, and it is also tagged in the links that I have presented to you tonight. So if there's no other questions, then I will call it a meeting, and I will send you the video when we have it. So thank you everybody for coming tonight.
Don't forget, 2024, you're invited to Ecuador. We hope to see you there.
Yes. I do have that on my to-do list.
Again, very nice to meet all of you, and thank you for the opportunity.
And thank you for coming. And she was able to come because you're able to request a speaker with the NASA's website. So if you want to have somebody come to your class or whatnot, there's a link there that you can request a speaker. Well, wonderful. Thank you so much. And I will send the video as soon as it's ready. And again, I will also send the links. So if you see some links that could be on there, please reach out to me and I will put them on there. It's meant to be a resource. Space is for everyone, not just Kentucky, but we're going to bring it to Kentucky too. I want to sincerely thank all the presenters tonight. Courtney Black, Dr. Deepika Sangam, Kaci Heins, Dr. Mark Wagner, and Robert Aillon. Thank you so much for spending your night with us and sharing space. Please take a minute and sign up for Space for Kentucky notifications. And one last time, here's the website where you can get the resources that we discussed tonight and more. We will add, if you have more, please send them to me and we will get them on there. I hope that you have found this evening enjoyable and inspirational. And I hope it has inspired you to reach for the stars.